I'm having an internship in Red Metrobot. It's a company which is also located in Russian Federation, but not only. We have many offices in different countries. I have around 2 years of iOS development experience. A little more about my company. We have around more than 80 clients. By clients, I mean that we have around 80 companies which want to have agreements with us. We make really different types of software. We are specialized in digital strategy, product development, UI, UX, data science, blockchain, fintech, VC, and applications, of course. And I am in applications blog. And I think the motto of our company can be is like, if you get a new job, you don't necessarily have to immediately give up if you don't know how to do it. We usually take our time, check what we can do, and sometimes we even hire new people just in order to solve the task. I think that is the reason why so many clients are happy to work with us. All right, so here's the example of the application I took part in, smart home app. Basically, this app allows you to control your house with some smart devices. Like you can control if you can check if your window is broken or the door is opened and stuff. Quite interesting project. We have some connections with like server. And the server itself is like quite unique because the app itself is quite unique. Also, I took part in making appliance shop app. It is quite simple, though I must say that design for it, UI and UX are quite good. And this is just like one of the example of the app I took part in. And also, we're right now working on a booth booking app, which allows you to place some special cabins in a metro. And in this metro, you can enter the cabin, which is quiet and has access to internet, and use that cabin. For instance, if you have a meeting and you must join it right now, this booth or cabin will be your best option. So why I have chosen iOS development and why you may choose iOS development as well. This is just my opinion. Like before we proceed, it's just my opinion. And firstly, let's check how many people use iOS and how many people use Android. As you can see, Japan is a leader, is a country leader which uses iOS devices. To be honest, yeah, when I came to Japan, it was a real surprise for me that almost everyone is using like iOS iPhones. It was very impressive for me. Second one is US, then goes UK, and like as you can see, less users in iOS than on Android. It's true, but if we check the amount of money users spend in App Store and Google Play, we will be surprised. Like even though the amount of users, of iOS users, is less, they spend twice more. It's a wonderment. I don't know why, but it works this way. And also, here goes just only my opinion. Like before, we had facts, but now we are only considering my opinion. No, this is fact as well. That on average, the amount of money iOS developer receives is a little bit more than Android developer. I also don't know why. I have no idea, but it works that way. And now, here goes my subjective reasons. I have tried a bunch of frameworks and languages. I have tried Kotlin, I have tried C++, C Sharp, PHP, JavaScript, Java, etc. And in my honest opinion, iOS seems to be the most clean. It means that the language used for programming is strive and convenient. And code in fundamental libraries is well written and structured. And secondly, it is strict. It can be considered as con, but at the same time, it can be considered as pro. Like it's indeed a subjective reason, and like because the fact that the system is strict makes it safe, but also makes it limited compared to Android. If you try to make something for Android, you will be surprised how much you can do without user permission. And next one, additional subjective reason is I also like the fact that the amount of types of devices, like iPhone 13 SE, like 14 Pro Max, is way more smaller than on Android. On Android, we have really lots of options: Google Pixel, Samsung, Xiaomi. And if you're an Android developer, you have to handle all of these devices with different types of screen sizes, with different types of processors and stuff. So we can even say that Android have a zoo of devices, and it's quite hard to maintain. So let's dive into iOS now. iPhone OS was first released in 2007. I think everyone watched that video with Steve Jobs when he walked out with this interesting thing, showed it to everyone applauded. It was indeed an innovation. And 2 years later, in 2010, it was renamed to iOS, and it has been changing rapidly over the years. The latest version now is iOS 16. It is installed on 49% of iPhones, maybe even more now. And what do we have in iOS? We have roughly 4 layers. First one is Cocoa Touch. It's like the top one, which is almost which is commonly used by app developers, like me. And if you want to become iOS developer, it will be used by you as well. We have also media service, media layer architecture. It is also used a lot. Then we have core services. You use it quite occasionally, and also you have core OS. It's just like very close to hardware stuff, and usually you will never use it. Let's check every single one, just like a quick look. Let's start with CoreOS, the lowest one. All the iOS technologies are built under the lowest level layer, CoreOS. We have such technologies as Core Bluetooth framework, external accessories framework, Accelerate framework, security services, local authorization, and etc. But as I said, usually iOS app developers don't touch this one. Next is core services. It is the second lowest layer in the architecture. Some important frameworks are present in the core services layer, which helps the iOS operating system to cure itself and provide better functionality. Below are some important frameworks like Address Book, CoreMotion, StoreKit. CoreMotion, for instance, is a framework which allows you to get information of location of your device in a room. Like, for instance, accessing CoreMotion lets you know what angle your iPhone is rotated. Also, you can get information how strong it is accelerated if you move it. If you move the iPhone, you will get information like with what speed it moves. Usually you don't use it as well. And the third one is media layer. We use it a lot. We have UI kits there, core graphics, core animation. This is just for establishing, like, for instance, UI kit allows us to establish UI elements layout. And the last one is Coco Touch. We have game kit, map kit, event kit here. This is indeed like the really like the highest layer. We don't even know how map kit works. We just have access to it and get information out of it without any diving and giving any instructions, any particular instructions. We just receive information from it. All right, so now we move to languages. And basically, there are two languages you want to use for iOS development. First one is Objective-C, and second one is Swift. Objective-C is old one. It was used in the beginning, and then Apple decided to make Swift, especially for iOS, watchOS, tvOS development. And it is more convenient. We will check the examples of code a little bit later. And I guess, guys, you are familiar with what typization is. I'll try to explain it. Let's overview Objective-C first. So typization is firstly static. The variable is linked to the type during declaration, and after declaration, variable's type cannot be changed. For instance, Python is dynamic because if in Python you create a variable with type string, later on you can change the value of this variable to the type int, for instance. You cannot do that in Objective-C. If you have declared that it is int, then it cannot be changed to double, float, anything like that. It remains int. Secondly, it is strong or strict. You cannot mix types. It means that if you have a variable with type integer and another variable with type double, if you try to sum them, for instance, like int a equal to 5 and double b equal to 6.0. If you try to sum them, if you try to write a plus b, you will get a compilation error because it will not allow you to mix types. And thirdly, it is explicit. It means that you must tell the compiler what type your variable has. I will explain it a little bit later with the example provided. Yeah, but for instance, you must always write int I, double I, or something like that. And now we move on Swift. It is static as well. It is strong as well. And it is implicit, not explicit like Objective-C is. So it means that if compiler manages to understand variable's type, then you should not, like, you are not needed to declare it. For instance, you can write let a equal to 5, and compiler will understand that you are trying to create a variable with name a, value 5, and type int. So here is an example. We are going to compare code. It is quite simple, but still we will be able to understand what's going on here, I guess. For instance, as I said, typization in Objective-C is explicit. It means that you have to say that when you create a variable, that its type is int. And we can move to Swift now and see that if we create a variable here, we don't say that it has type integer because it understands it by itself. And also, as you can notice, the code itself is quite maybe old-fashioned. To be honest, I don't like it there. I like Swift more. I think it's more strife and convenient, but it's like, I think it's everyone like individual's taste. Like, it's not mandatory to choose always Swift. You can always choose Swift. Oh, you can also choose Objective-C if you want. And all right, so here is another important thing we need to know. how do we make UI layout? How do we make, like, for instance, button or title or something like that? There are three ways, roughly. First way is Swift UI. We will move to it later. Second one is UI kit, and the third one is UI kit as well. But if we use UI kit with interface builder, actually, I will show you the pictures later. We can either use interface builder, or we can just write code and tell exact constraints, tell the compiler exact constraints. Usually, in majority, right now, people are using the third way. But Swift UI is starting to becoming more and more popular. All right, so here's UI kit, interface builder. As you can see, here is interface builder. We use storyboard here. We basically just move buttons on the screen. We give them constraints. I think for beginners, it's very convenient. Also, we use code in order to write logic, which will be executed, for instance, if we click the button or something. Second way, as I said, UI kit, but through code. So we don't have any interface builder anymore. We have only code. And in this case, I think it's not for beginners, but it is most commonly used. When you understand how the layout system works, you start feeling that layout builder somehow stops you from making what you really want, so you move to code. And you can, for instance, use constraints. This is only one of the ways. Actually, there are many ways of writing layout through code. And Swift UI, actually, I wanted to show you guys with the live code how we use Swift UI, because it's the most fancy one, and it's becoming more and more popular. And I think in 2 or 3 years, it will be most commonly used. But before we proceed, if you guys have any questions, please ask them or write or whatever. All right. So now we are going to a live code part, the most interesting one, I suppose. And also, guys, if you have something you didn't understand, you can ask me right now. It's not a problem. I will try to explain it again with a slower pace and with another words, maybe. All right, so here is Xcode. When you guys download it and open it, you will see this window. Worry not, it's not that scary as it might seem. We need to click this button and create a new project. So let's create an app for iOS. Choose app button, click next. Here we have to name our project. Let's name it. It's called Adventures 2, because I already have Xcode Adventures 1, because I was testing it yesterday. So here we choose Swift UI. As you can see, we can also choose storyboard. This is like UI kit way. And we can also use, we can only use Swift if we use Swift UI. If you use storyboard, we can use Objective-C. we can use core data. Core data allows us to store data on our device. It's like database on your phone, but we will not check what it is today. We will also not check what tests are today. We will just make a simple recipe app. So click next. We create our projects here. And here we go. So what we see here now is like a lot of things. And for beginner, it will be, I think it will be even a little bit scary, but please don't worry. It's all fine. I will try to roughly explain you what are the most important parts here. To the right, we can see so-called canvas. Canvas allows us to make changes, to display changes we've made in runtime. For instance, we have two ways of checking what we are making. Canvas, this thing which is still loading, I don't know why, and simulator. Simulators will be installed by default, so worry not, it's all fine. You just have to install Xcode. So this is our simulator. See, it will like run, and I guess it's still loading. It should write hello world here. Okay, let's try again. Xcode moment. I'm sorry, guys. You cannot do anything with that. Xcode is a monopoly. You cannot as a framework because builds can be made only via Xcode. So they can do what they want, basically. And yeah, as you can see, they make some lucky stuff sometimes. Well, I guess we will return to it later when it loads, but you can just trust me on this one. It will display the same. And when we change our code, for instance, I want to write hello code with the question, it will update in real time. As you can see, we have a question mark here. For instance, we can make the text bold, and it will make the text bold in real time. Oh, here we go. Here is our simulator. As you can see, we have changed something in our code, and in Canvas, it immediately replied with new updates. But simulator, you have to start it again. So during this lesson, we will only concentrate on Canvas because it allows us to check updates in real time. Also, as you can see on the first button, we have a structure of our code. These are Swift files. In this Swift file, for instance, in content view, you can see the code for our first screen. So I hope it was enough for the beginning. There are extremely many things you can do and see in Xcode. This is made for Git. This is like, yeah, we have a lots of things here. We can discuss it like for a whole day. But for now, we will just only need this. We will just only need this button. and this canvas and code here. All right. So now we are going to make a recipe app. Before we make a recipe app, we need to come up with a decision of what parts our recipe consists. So it will be like this. We will have a list of recipes which can be scrollable. And when we click on any of the recipes, we open the screen with recipe description. So in this case, our recipe will probably consist of, can you tell me what it will consist of? Yes, we can call it ingredients. But we're going to make it simple. So let's say we will have description. And in this description, we will have like how to make this. Just text, just raw text. And in this text, we will just have explanation of what this is and what ingredients are used. We also need the name of the recipe, obviously. For instance, we want to cook sushi. And in order to cook sushi, in order to understand what recipe we are going to make, we need the name of this recipe, right? So sushi will be the name. Also, so what we have now so far, name of the recipe, description of the recipe. We can also add something interesting like stars, the amount of stars this recipe has. For instance, from 1 to 5, like a review. Also, I think it might be really a nice idea to add image for the recipe, so it will be more interesting for user to use this app, and the user will understand what his eventual meal will look like. So what we have so far: name, description, stars amount from 1 to 5, and image 4. All right, so we can display our thoughts in code. Let's make a structure, and let's name it recipe. As we said, it will have a name. Right now, I created a variable. Can you see the code actually? I think it's kind of. Yeah, let's make it like this one. More convenient, right? So we will have a structure, recipe. It will have a name. It will have a description. It will have a stars amount. Let's just write stars and make it integer type. What else do we have here? We need to provide it with image, right? So user will be able to see the image. What else do we need? I think that's it, right? Also, for making app understand what recipe is clicked, we need to provide our recipe with ID. Almost always when you make a model, you add ID, like this one, just for letting the application know are recipes different or not, or they are the same. And we have a protocol called identifiable. It's just for making this ID. We use this protocol in order to appease our later code. And now, when we are ready with our model, we need to provide our application with recipes. We are not going to use the network today because I think it will be a little muzukashi. So we will use already prepared recipes. So right now I'm going to open my project from yesterday, and I'm just going to import our recipes I have made yesterday. Yeah. So I'll just put that code here. Please don't be scared. It's just like the same model and with recipes provided. Here I'm creating an array of recipes, and I'm making like this is just a declaration, right? And this is an like object of the structures. Like we have a bunch of objects here. For instance, this recipe describes borщ with image borщ. It has 5 stars because borщ is delicious. We have also a description how to prepare it. I just copy paste some text. We have pelmeni, a lot of things. Yeah, as I said, please don't be scared. It's just like a code with which simulates like when you will really create a recipe app, you will probably have to take recipes from server and make a get request. But we will not connect to server right now. So let's just imagine that this array is an answer from server. Okay, so and also before we proceed, we need to also provide images, right? Борщ, пельмени, we need to hard code them. So that's what I'm going to do here. These are assets. Here you add images or colors which you are going to use in your project. And later on, you are able to use, for instance, images. This way, you write image and write the name. Quite simple, I think. And this command just creates unique identifier. Like it's the same as writing. Like actually, it just creates some random text which will be unique. You could also go with this one, and the second recipe will have the number 2 and stuff. But yeah, it's like it doesn't make any, like there is no difference. Yeah, I think I have explained everything so far, and now we are ready to move on. Now we are ready to make a list of recipes finally. So Swift UI, like why we are doing it in Swift UI right now? Because Swift UI is the most easiest thing. Like you just use a declarative way and you say what you want, but you don't describe how it must be made. You describe what you want, and the system will make everything by itself. So we can just say, well, actually, I want a list, and it will provide you with a list. It asks you to provide content, and so that's what we are going to do. We want to use our array we have created so not a while ago, this one, and in these braces we need to provide information of how to display every recipe. So here we have in the recipe, and we need to establish a logic for each of the recipe. For instance, let's just write for now that will be text with recipe name. We don't need this one anymore. So here we have a list of recipes. When we click on each recipe, we stay on the same page because we haven't provided a logic of what to do after we clicked on the recipe. But before we make an additional page for the recipe details, I think it might be a good idea to make our list look more fancy. Because right now it's just like a list with text, right? I think no one will be interested in such thing. So how do we do that? Actually, we can provide the code with here how you create a view. We write struct recipe cell, for instance. We conform it to view, and then we write what kind of information our view needs, if it needs any. And our view will need an information about recipe, right? So we write recipe here. Then we need to provide it with the logic of how it will be displayed. Here we're writing what do we need here? I think that we need to display an image on the left of the cell, and then we need to display the name of the recipe. Probably it will be enough. So we need to write horizontal stack. H stack means horizontal stack, so it will establish elements on horizontal line. Then we write recipe image. We need to make it resizable, and we need to, let's say that some corners, so it will look like, so it will have a circle corners. And next, what we need to add is text. We need to provide it with recipe name. All right. So here's our cell which we want to use. How do we use it? Instead of writing text recipe.name, we remove it now, and we use our cell, recipe cell. And we need to provide it with recipe because we defined it here. So we write recipe. Well, let's check what we will have here. Ooh. Yeah, it's like SwiftUI has some troubles with images, so we not only have to write resizable, we also have to write frame and establish its width and height. For instance, it will be 30, and let height be 30 as well. Alrighty, and corner radius is, I think it's too much. Let's make it 5. You could probably make the image bigger. All right, so here's our recipe list. And we can scroll it, we can work with it as we want. But when we click any of the cells, it does not respond. It's because we haven't created a view for recipe details yet. So actually what I'm doing right now, from the point of correct code layout, is incredibly incorrect. You must never do such things. You should always send your array to some other places, send your data to some other places, divide code with some like MVP, MVC rules. Maybe you have heard of MVC, MVP, those rules to establish code. But just now, for educational purposes, I'm doing this. So now we need to create additional view for our recipe. As you can see, we can write every single piece of code in one file, but it will be terrible, right? Let's distinguish it somehow. So let's create another Swift file. and it will be SwiftUI view. Like whenever you choose anything of this, it will just provide you with some placeholder code, which you can always get rid of. For instance, if I choose SwiftUI view, and let's name it recipe details. It will just create a view with some boilerplate code, with hello world code, and so here's what we want to see here. This view also needs information about it. So let's write that recipe. It will allow us to use recipe. As you can see, we get an error because we need to provide some information in preview. Let's provide it with our first element of the array, Bosch. And what do we want to see in these details? I think that on the top of the screen, we want to see the image. Then we want to see the amount of stars this recipe has. And also on the bottom, we will see a description, an explanation how to cook it. And all of the content must be scrollable because the description can be like overwhelmed. So as I just explained it, let's try to like make it into code. So I said that it must be scrollable. So we can just write scroll view. And here we have a scroll view. In this scroll view, before we proceed, we need to say that it will be vertical, not horizontal, because scroll view can be either vertical or horizontal, but we need vertical one. And now we need to write what we are going to have in the scroll view. So as I said, we want to see the image on the top, right? So we will write recipe dot image. We will make it resizable, and let's edit with set height. Let's say it will be 300 and height will be 400. Yeah, and as you can see, it is immediately updated here. So here's what we have. As you can see, I can scroll it, and it looks a little bit disgusting. Let's add some comments, probably. Maybe even 50. Yeah, and let's make the width equal to 400. No, it's too much. Okay, 300 is fine. And I think probably. Yeah, looks fine. And also let's add some padding. Yeah, looks okay. Now we need to have images. Now we need to have the amount of stars this recipe has just under the image. So when user clicks the recipe, he will immediately see the picture of what he's going to cook and the amount of stars it has. So if it will be oishi or not. And how do we do that? I have already set up a picture of star here. And my suggestion is to set up a horizontal stack with the amount of stars our model has. So as you can remember, our model has stars, which is integer. So it means if this integer is equal to 5, then we want to display 5 stars. If it has equal to 3, then we have to display 3 stars, right? So in order to do that, we can go with horizontal stack. And here we need to provide the information of, no, not here. Here, we need to use cycle 4, right? Cycle 4, I think all of you know this cycle 4 int I equal to something, something. You can write it this way here. Recipe dot stars. This is another way of using for cycle, like fancy Swift UI way, but it's basically just a for cycle, which allows us to iterate 5 times. Oh, no, not 5 times, not 5 times, but the amount of stars. For instance, if it has 3 stars, you iterate 3 times. And what we want to establish, what we want to show here is just an image, which is named star. We made it recyclable. And we set its frame. It's equal to, and I put. All right. So here, what we have here, the amount of stars. If we want, we can add some padding, some insets. We can make something like this, but it's honestly up to you or up to your designer. And for instance, if we choose another recipe, we will see Pirmini also has 5 stars. All of them have 5 stars. Looks like so. Wow. All right, let's change our model. Let's say that Borщ has only 2 stars. It's not true. Borщ is very delicious. And let's come up with Borщ again. Yeah, it was just Swift UI moment. We have 2 stars here. Ooh. And so what's next? We also need, last but not least, we need to provide it with description. So description will be just text with recipe dot description. And in order to make it looking all right, we can say that if it has many lines, we want to show it in center. And also, we might want to add some buttons, so it will squeeze a little. All right, so what we have here is our recipe. Our page is ready, our detail page. Okay, so now we are ready to somehow making those two work simultaneously. And in order to do that, we need to add some additional code. Here we have a content view with a list. So in order to let SwiftUI know that we want to go somewhere from this list, we need to wrap our views to navigation stack. And to be like this. And also, we want to let user know what this list is. We might want to write things like this one. So as you guys can see, we have now a pretty list with the name of that list, and we can, when we scroll, it appears on the top. Like it's an incredibly smart system. As you can see, we did not establish logic. If we scroll down, this title must be changed. It is already done, not by us. What we do is just wrap it in navigation stack, and that's it. And it's not enough. What we also need is a navigation link. And we need to put ourselves in that link. And what we also need is to provide Swift UI, provide our code with information of the destination. So our destination will be recipe details and recipe details view, obviously. In that recipe details, we also need to put our recipe because it uses such information. So I think we are done now, and our recipe app should be ready. Yeah, as you can see now, when we click, we have another view which we established earlier, and it displays, for instance, our borscht with 2 stars and description. And I guess that's it so far for this beginner tutorial. To be honest, we have like a lot of things to do. Like iOS developers have a lot of things to do. This is just like top of iceberg, but I hope it allows you what we had just now, this tutorial. It allows you just to get basic understanding of how it works. Of course, later on, for instance, um, if you decide to become iOS developer, or if you're already an iOS developer, you will see that it's not that easy. For instance, this is one of my projects I'm working on. We have a lot of things to write here and lots of things to do, a lot of logic to establish. As you can see, we put the code in additional files, we mark it, so it will be easy for us to understand the code. We have some extensions, we have some services, utils and stuff. Yeah, there are a lot of things to learn. But that was just introduction to Swift UI, to iOS app development, not only iOS, but mainly iOS. Also, you can make the same for watchOS, as far as I know, even for tvOS. And yeah, I think it was pretty much it. So the plan now is question and answer time. And after this, we will have a short break. I think it will be 10 or 15 minutes, right? And after that, I will tell you more about my internship experience. And I think this information will be useful not only for iOS developers, but for any software engineer. I think even for any guy or girl who wants to be in IT. Yeah, all right. So if you guys have any questions, I'm ready to answer them. I honestly understand that it might seem to be incredibly hard for beginners. If so, I'm really sorry for that. I tried to explain it. So if you have some like misunderstandings, like don't be shy. Yeah, you drew.
Can I talk now?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. My question is not about the code, but about why you chose to develop iOS app. You said that iOS app is more widespread, especially in Japan, and kind of downside of Android app is that the developer has to cope with various types of the hard device. But I'm not sure exactly, but web application is very compatible with like hard device because you just use browser to access to it. So do you think the iOS making iOS app is more compatible than making web app?
Then making what? With
Like
Dart?
like web application.
You mean front-end websites and that kind of stuff? Or you mean Flutter, Dart for both systems?
Yes, both system, Flutter and Dart.
I see what you mean. Well, if you use multi-platform ways of making apps, it will be faster for sure. For instance, some guy has his pizza restaurant or sushi restaurant, and that guy just wants an application for both iOS and Android with a simple menu application, like menu information. And in this case, Flutter or Dart is the best option because when you write code, like it will be for both platform at the same time. So it might be your choice. But if you're working on some really massive project, I don't know, for instance, if you're working on bank or YouTube or something like this, in this case, you need to think of many small details which usually are not provided in Darts or Flutter because they are very native. And for instance, there are some differences between Android and iOS. Sometimes Android has something that iOS doesn't. And in these cases, you might want to choose like native development. And to be honest, I haven't done a lot of work with Flutter or Dart, but as far as I know, Flutter probably has the same style, declarative style, and I think it might be probably even the same if you use Swift UI or Flutter. Probably, yeah, it will be the same, but when we are talking about code, when we are talking about UI layout, when we are talking about logic writing, I'm not sure. Did I answer your question? Did I understand it correctly?
Yes, that was interesting.
All right, thank you for the
Thank
question.
you.
And do we have anything else to discuss? If not, we will have 10.
Can I ask a question?
Okay, yeah, of course.
Thank you for good presentation. I have a question that you talked about iOS architecture and I and also you do live coding and So today today's live coding is only about the first layer. I mean, that's the most high level layers. Or yeah, what's it? So my question is, what's the connection between the iOS architecture and your live coding?
iOS architecture. By iOS architecture, you
I
mean
mean layer. You talked about the 4 layers.
you mean this one, right? You mean this one, right?
Oh yes, that's one.
What we have used today is basically this top layer, as far as I can, as far as I know, only this top layer. Probably some of it as well, of course, but we surely didn't touch any of these ones. So yeah, as I said, we just had a brief introduction in iOS development, and because we don't have much time, we just checked something of these ones just to understand the basics. Yeah, and like if you will be more interested in it, yeah, you will for sure have to dive into these ones. And I would say, even though the system, iOS system and code in libraries is well structured and it is very clean, it will still be quite tough to learn all of this because they have a lot to learn. Did I
I
answer your
see.
question?
Yeah, thank you for answering my question. Thank you.
Okay, so if we have any other questions, please feel free to ask. If not, we're going to have five. Five? All right. We're going to have 5 minutes break, which will be over in 15:15. And when the break is over, we will come back and discuss real job experience, and we will discuss some tips on how you might want to behave when you get the job or before you get the job. Yeah, this stuff. So thank you guys, and see you in 5 minutes. Okay, I think we are ready to proceed. Let's close this project. And I think now we are ready to discuss some general topic. And not iOS anymore. Yeah, all right. So, as I said, I'm an exchange student. Kokan say this? Kokanori say this. Hi, and I'm on fourth grade, first year. I'm almost done with my studies. Studies will be over in 3 months, and after that I'll get my diploma. And I have I've got my job when I was on second grade, and from my point of view, when all of that is behind, I have some tips for any students, even from can you guys see me and the presentation now? Okay, so I'm not sure what you have heard, but I'll skim again. So what I said is that I'm on fourth grade already, and I'm almost done with my studies. And I have some tips for people who want to become any kind of software engineer. You can either become Android developer, iOS developer. Actually, it doesn't matter when it's about getting a job. We all will have to use the same way, probably. So firstly, what you have to learn is to learn basics. If you are a software engineer, you guys need to firstly decide what kind of software engineer you want to be. Like, if you want to be Android developer, you probably want to learn syntaxes of Java and Kotlin. If you want to be an iOS developer, you want to learn syntaxes of Swift. If you want to become a backend developer related to banks, you want to learn Java probably. Then you will need to learn what object-oriented programming is and some stuff. So yeah, you have just basically learn some initial stuff which will let you to make pet projects. By pet projects, I mean that I mean projects which will not probably make profit, but which will allow you to get experience and show these projects in your resume. For instance, that recipe app, it was very easy. But if you make it by yourself, add connection to server, to network, add core data, I mean like add the database structure code properly, it will be a nice pet project, which you can use in your resume later, and you will be able to show off. This tip is also quite useful. You guys might want to take part in hackathons. Hackathon, are you guys familiar what hackathon is? You guys know this? It's like a competition between programmers. Usually you take part in hackathons with team, and it will be incredibly cool if you are into a team with more experienced teammates. You might probably feel guilty that you slowed down the pace and you don't let your team win. because everyone is so experienced and you're just a newbie, you're just a beginner, but still, it's the best option so far, because in this case, your skills will grow rapidly. And talking about resume, it is incredibly important to make it fine. Some people even try to lie in the resume. It's up to you, of course. I'm not making any tips about lying in resume, but I would say that many people do that. All right. And practice makes perfect. You should just like code whatever you want, make apps and stuff. It will help you, like, for sure. You just should never be afraid of trying to do something new, trying to learn something new. It's just a general tip. And how to become exactly iOS software engineer? Well, firstly, like these tips are only for iOS software engineers. So you guys might want to learn Swift syntax, how to write code, like I did in the introduction, in live code, and Objective-C, to be honest, it's obsolete. It's not needed anymore. So you guys probably will not need Objective-C if you want to become a software engineer. And secondly, you might want to use a programming paradigm, like object-oriented programming is the most important one. And then you might want to learn architectural patterns. When I was making an app, recipe app, I didn't follow them. I didn't follow architectural patterns. But basically speaking, in MVC, MVP, and MVVM, it allows you to distinguish view layout, like buttons, pictures, and stuff from logic. And later on, if your project grows, it will allow you to establish it easily. MVC, MVP, and MVVM, probably also Viper, will be enough. Actually, 3 of them will be enough, I think. Then you need to learn on how to store data in your device. Like, for instance, when you firstly open recipe app, you make request to a server and get recipes from there. And then you turn off the app and you turn off your internet. When you open your app, you might want to see recipes. And in order to do that, we need to have a database on our device, in our app. We can go with core data, or we can go with Realm. Realm is additional library. It's like not native, but it's very common. 2 of them will be enough for beginner. Next one is Llama-Fire and URL session. These are network connection frameworks, which will allow you to make a request, like get list of recipes. And this one is user interface layout systems. This one is native, this one is native, Swift UI is native as well. And SnapKit is another popular, very common additional library, which is not native. And when you guys get an internship or even a job, you might probably feel frightened. You might probably feel scared. That's what I felt when I got to Red Met Robot. And I had a feeling that I'm not good enough for that job. And in the beginning, I must say that it was really tough. So if I had an opportunity to tell previous me 2 years ago, tell him some like tips what to do, I would say that firstly, you should remain on board. Like when you are in the company, you will be really surprised, especially if you got into IT company, you will be extremely surprised how different it is comparing to other companies. Like IT world is completely different thing. It allows you to do like it provides you with extremely many opportunities, and IT companies are almost always different from other companies. So when you get there, you will be really surprised, and you will see how many people are kind of taking it easy. They will be kind of calm and not worrying and stuff. But we must understand then when we only got our job, when it's like first month, first week, even first half a year, we are fragile and we risk of losing it. So I would say that it might be a good idea to work hard until you feel that you are making like a profit for a company, probably. Yeah, I used to take more additional hours in order to improve my level because I was really scared that they will fire me. And second one is don't show off as your seniors do. Senior is your team lead. He's like boss, like more important guy, head of the team. Usually, team leads acting very. They seem that it seems that they don't care about anything at all. That they are just going to their company, drinking coffee, going back home. But whatever you see from their behavior, never copy it, because they are experienced and they are familiar with companies' rules, intricacies. They know for sure where they can push a little and when they must hold back. And also the second reason is that they will be able to find a new job if they get fired. And we will probably not, because we only got the job, we don't have any experience. We need to keep being in this company, get our experience. So never act like your seniors until you feel that you are senior. When you feel you are senior, you can do whatever you want. And thirdly, you guys should show your interest in your occupation, I mean, of course, and company's projects. What I mean by that is that you, even if you're not interested, and for instance, you're an iOS developer, you got your job, and you got your internship, and even if you don't care about how that thing in iPhone works, like the dynamic island, for instance, if you don't care how it works, you're not interested. You should show that you are interested. You write in company's chat, oh, I wonder, there is a new thing in iPhone, dynamic island. I wonder how it works. What should we, how we can work with it, what animations it can provide and stuff. And also, you should show your interest in projects your company takes you into. For instance, your company takes you into this app, and this app doesn't seem interesting to you. It's just appliance shop app. You don't like it. It would be much more interesting for you if the project was unique, like this one, smart home app. It's very unique and it's incredibly interesting to work with it. But sometimes you receive such kind of projects, and when you get them, it is very important to at least pretend that you're interested in them as well, and pray that they will give you some more interesting projects later on. And so yeah, it might be a good idea to ask questions, even if they are stupid. They will probably be stupid, and it's fine. Never remain wordless. Always ask questions. As far as I know, sometimes Japanese people can be ちょっと shy, and you should like always ask questions, always, even if you don't care, even if you're not interested, even if you think that your question is stupid, even if you think that this question will bother someone, and they will be like, oh, like you're so stupid. You still have to ask, like always ask. And also, it might be a good idea to take part in some events like presentations. You can even provide by yourself. Like I want to, like for instance, this is an instance. Like I have provided my team with a presentation about critical alerts. It doesn't matter what this is. Just with the topic I got familiar with, and I immediately wrote my team lead, hey, I know now what this is. We could use it in our projects. As far as I know, nobody knows about it. Let me tell. And he was like, all right. So it led to knowledge increase, team knowledge increase. And it also increases your authority and soft skills. I guess, I hope you know what soft skill is. Soft skill is like the way, the ability to communicate with others. And yeah, actually, before asking questions, the last one will probably be very important, like first tip, very important one. It is also always more important for person to be able to communicate than to be extremely skilled in their sphere. So basically, soft skills are always more important than hard skills. It means that, for instance, imagine there is a project manager and he has to choose iOS developer. There are two of them. First one knows everything about iOS development. He can write code in 5 minutes and it will be perfect and it will work perfectly, but he always acts strangely. He is very shy, or when he talks to someone, he becomes angry or something like this. And that guy, iOS developer, has to talk to a product owner. And second person, is kind of stupid. That person doesn't know all of iOS development, but it has high communication skills. And when he talks to product owner, he can like ask him to establish some new features. So he's just like a nice, he has just nice conversation with product owner. And in this case, trust me, almost always the second guy will be taken. So although in the beginning hard skills are important, soft skills are very important as well. All right. So I think that was it from my side. I hope it was like useful for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Who was the first one? Yujiro, I think. Please, Dozo.
Oh, okay, thank you. So you are now working at the what was it? Red
Metrobot, yeah.
Red Mat Robot. So have you thought about working at different company as an intern, or do you think it is common to work in several companies as an intern?
I am currently recording this on video, and I will send the video to my home company.
Oh.
But I will tell you the truth. All right.
Like generally, is it common for interns to work at different company? Is it answerable question?
Yeah, it's fine. I will tell you the truth even like about your first one. And like my company provided me like a really useful beginning, really useful start. It was incredibly useful start. It like they took a small kitten and made a tiger out of it, but now they still consider me as internee. but I feel that I'm not intern anymore, you know? So I was thinking of maybe switching the company or getting higher, more benefit offer. But I was thinking of doing it after I get my diploma, because now I don't have time. I need to work on my thesis. And yeah, I've got some options to move to other companies, and I will tell about it to my home company later, or maybe they will watch the full video and like you'll be surprised now. And actually, no, it is not common to have many internship simultaneously. Well, if you have, for instance, if you have 2 internships or 2 jobs, it means that you have to work at 8 hours a day, right? 4 hours on one job, 4 hours on the second one. And if you are a beginner and you have 2 internships, you will probably overwork on first one in first company and in second company. And I think that you will go crazy just in 2 months. So I think it is a nice idea to have an internship only in one company, get as much experience as possible, overwork there if needed. And when you feel ready, you can keep being in that company. And also, you can go on freelance. For instance, if you need more money or something like that, or if you need more experience, you can go on freelance. That's what I'm doing. I am having my internship and I'm having a freelance project. And it also like will be useful for your resume later on, because you will use freelance as an experience as well. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, I have a question. How did you get the internship in the RedMart robot? So how did you apply for the internship?
Our program, I am a student of a higher IT school in Tomsk State University, and that higher IT school has an agreement with the local IT companies. So basically speaking, our university has some agreements with local IT companies. And this agreement allows students to get internship if they have good grades and if they pass the interview. So that's how I got to RedMat Robot. And I'm sure that probably in Japan it must be common as well. And if not, you can always just search by yourself, like internship programs. For instance, Rakuten has an internship program. This program allows students who just graduated, who just got their diplomas, to get that position. But you will also have to pass interview, of course. That interview consists of firstly programming tasks, like array sorting or something like that. Secondly, they will ask you to write some code, like for iOS development, for instance. And thirdly, they will have soft skill interviews. They will check if you will fit the team and stuff. That's almost all. That's how almost all of the interviews go. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
I see. Yeah, thank you. I also wonder, is it sorry, RedMart robot is a sorry, what's the country of your company?
They have a bunch of offices in different countries. They have office in Kazakhstan, in Turkey, and in Russia as well. So, but to be honest, I have no idea, like, what is the main office.
I see. And your company don't have the Japanese office?
No, unfortunately, they work for CIS countries. CIS means Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Kazakhstan. So they are not targeted on Japan. That's why they don't have offices there. Though
I see.
they have a guy from Egypt. He is a foreigner and he managed to get there, but he knows Russian.
I see. Yeah, thank you for answering to my question.
Okay, guys, any more so far? If not, do we have any end speech? Do you have any? Okay, so I guess that was it. So, guys, thank you for listening. We are going to have some final speech now, and after that, it will be over. So, okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Daniel. So
thank
that was the speech was the presentation was awesome, and I was personally was interesting about the recipe of that was written many Russian
cuisine.
Russian foods. Yeah, and then all right. If you don't have any questions, the seven will go over, and thank you so much for attending us today, and I hope we see you next time. And if you have any question about GDSC or our club, please feel free to ask me. And after this time, feel free to leave this room or get some interactions freely. 日本語でも大丈夫なんで、何かこの GDSC について聞きたいことなんかある方はご自由に聞いてください。もし何もない方は出てこのまま退出していただいて大丈夫です。大丈夫かな。ヒューバートさんだけずっと残ってる。消えた。OK。Everything over.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much. That's amazing.